How do Muslims reconcile the doctrine of the Tawheed, that Allah is supposed to be completely one, with the doctrine which is, although not accepted by the Shia but mostly by the Sunnis, of the uncreatedness of the Quran?
So, Josh, what's your understanding of the uncreated Quran? Because this is a question that's been coming up for a long time. Speaker's Corner, brother, I've probably seen a dozen, if half a dozen at least, brothers who've answered the question in pretty much the same way. Have you never asked the question at Speaker's Corner? Have you never received an answer for this question? Or
so I've asked it to a few people in Speaker's Corner. The answer I've always got is that it refers to that the Quran is an attribute of Allah. That's the answer I've been given.
I don't think it's an attribute. But I think we've answered the question many times that with the knowledge of Allah, the Quran would have existed eternally. You see, the actual physical book, the Mus'haf that was sent down, and this is obviously an English translation, but the actual Arabic text when it was written down, it is something that once it gets old, it's even burnt or it's buried or whatever, to dispose of it in a respectful way. Burning it is not actually disrespectful in Islam. It's a valid way of getting rid of an old manuscript that's damaged and that can't be read. So you would have a new copy or whatever, and the old one would be respectfully got away with in that way. But the knowledge of Allah, as a Jew, I think you would accept that whatever knowledge Allah has, like for example, the Torah itself, would you say that the Torah was something that came into existence, or did God have that in his knowledge but bring it into existence when he chose to?
So I believe that that the Torah was in fact created. Only God himself is uncreated, but everything within the so-called knowledge of God has to have been created at some point.
Right. So are you saying that there was a time when God did not know of the Torah?
No, there was not a time before it, because God is above time. So God created time. Whether or not God created the Torah before he created time is not something I know.
So, but basically what we're saying is that, was there ever a moment when God did not know of the Torah?
In a sense, yes, i.e. that prior to the creation of the Torah, there could be no knowledge of the Torah.
So there was a moment when God had no knowledge of the Torah?
Yes.
So you don't believe God has no full knowledge?
No. How? Because knowledge, we believe, is an attribute of God. God's omniscience is an attribute of him, and therefore he created his own omniscience.
Josh, is that a mainstream Jewish belief in terms of actual rabbinical grounding, that they believe that the Torah actually, at one point, God did not know what he was going to say, what he was going to
God knows the future.
What God was going to give to
Moses. Let me just, can I just give a line of question in 1 second? Sorry. Josh, do you believe God knows the future?
Yes, because there is no future when it comes to God, but for God, all time, past, present, and future is an open book.
So then God knows what the Torah is, then, isn't it? Always.
Before there is...
There is no before. There is no before.
There is a knowledge, an attribute of knowledge that God has created.
There's no before for you, is there? There's no concept of time for God, you just said. So how can you have a before now?
That is a good point.
So now we are saying God did know what was in the Torah.
It's a good point you're raising. It's a good point.
I just want to, because your question was really an interesting one, because you raised this as a question about Tawheed, and you said that this is it requires an explanation to having the Quran as an uncreated statement, that the Quran is uncreated, and then you have Allah who is eternal. Does this affect Tawheed in any way? That was really the underlying thing that I think you were trying to get to. And so I'm going to give you an analogy. Now, obviously, all analogies are imperfect, and we can't make perfect analogies, particularly when it comes to the creator. But I'm going to try and give an analogy to try and explain. So you're speaking, right, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah. Can your speech exist without you?
I don't know. Can my speech... Theoretically, there could be my speech without me, I suppose. I'm not sure, though.
I would say that that's clearly the answer to that question is clearly no. I don't know how you're thinking. So if you did not exist, could your speech exist?
It depends. If my speech has to, if a prerequisite to the existence of my speech is the existence of myself. Just
sorry to interrupt you. You're thinking. I don't understand your thinking process. What you're doing is you're taking this speech and you're giving it attributes. Now we've agreed that speech is an attribute of the Creator. We've agreed this. Like just as speech is something that manifests from you. Now the question is, do the attributes exist on their own or not?
With regards to attributes of myself or attributes of God?
So the analogy is to get you to think about the Creator, but I'm trying to use yourself as an example just to try and give that. So for example is, can your speech exist without you?
So if we, God forbid, leave God out of the picture for this particular analogy, because otherwise it's going to get far too complicated, then for sure, then you would be right that my speech could not exist without me.
Okay, so now I'm going to say, let's talk about the Creator. Now I would say the attributes of the Creator can't exist without the Creator.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So now we don't have a conflation between, we're not comparing two different things. The Quran is the speech of Allah. It's an attribute of Allah. Do you understand?
Yes, I got
now
that.
Now the question comes, when we're talking about the text, are we referring to that attribute or not? So there's two things here. Now we have to differentiate this. The attribute we've agreed is why? Because the Creator is eternal. The attribute is eternal. This is therefore the Quran is uncreated and eternal. So that's a dealt with thing. This is a creation, like somebody's put these pages together, written the pages and the ink down. This is not that attribute.
I understand the difference between the written Quran and the spoken Quran.
So what I would say then, that means that coming to the concept of Tawheed, that it doesn't impact that at all. And another example would be creation. One of the attributes of God is that He is the Creator. Now the creation. So we agree with this, yeah?
Yes.
So the creative command, that creative command is not separate from the Creator in any sense, right?
I would disagree with that because prior to having created anything, how can God be considered to be a creator? In order to be a creator, you need to have a creation.
So okay, that's interesting. So I think that sorry, Hamza, go on. You want to?
I was going to say, you don't need to create to have the attribute of a creator. You just need to create to demonstrate the attribute.
But that depends on how we understand what the attribute is. So let me just think of how to explain this.
Oh, okay. Before God created the universe, do you believe God created the universe?
Yes.
Did He have the attribute of creator?
Before He created anything, He did not.
Did He have the attribute of creator?
Creator, no.
No. How did He create then?
Okay, let's change the word for a moment, Josh. Let's make the word ability.
Ability. Okay. Did God have the ability to create? Yes.
Okay, so that's the attribute.
That's the attribute.
Oh, that's what you mean when you say attribute.
So yeah,
okay.
This is really the creation is a manifestation of the attribute. Evidence of the attribute, if you like.
No, it's the manifestation of Okay, fine.
I need another mic, man. I've got to stop doing this with you, Josh.
Sorry?
Sorry, carry on.
So hopefully that's clear that there isn't an issue with the Tawheed and the concept of...
Does that make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your second question, Josh? What was the other question?